Alrighty, so we are back with part 2 of the knife making videos. Yeah, won't waste any time this time around, we'll just hop right into it. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and take that knife off the rack that we had there. And I'm going to let you know right now we have a lot of editing in this one, so lots of footage was cut out. Mostly of sanding, and you'll see that here in a little bit. I've even sped a lot of it up. But either way, first thing we want to do is we want to take these clamps off of the knife. If any epoxy got on there, those little feet will stick, but they'll pop right off. Which both of these did a little bit, but nothing crazy. So, totally manageable. I'm checking the seams here, making sure it was a secure fit. I'm pulling on both of the scales, and I don't know why I'm feeling the blade there. I'm just curious of how sharp it was, I guess. But yeah, I was pulling on the blades here, on the scale blanks and stuff, make sure there was no jiggling, make sure that the epoxy mixed thoroughly, all that good stuff. What we're going to do is, I still had my 120 grit belt on there, so I'm switching that out for the 50. So we're going back to the heavy abrasion. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start profiling this bad boy. Now this I left at full speed, and there's a good deal of it. So I'm going to first take down these pins. Those right there. So I'm going to take down the pins on both sides. And once again, I cut those pins extra large so that they would fit all the way through. For this very reason, that way we know we don't have any gaps or any holes in the grips here where there's epoxy that we have to grind down. And this is what I meant by limiting the thickness of the grip itself. I didn't know how thick I wanted this grip initially. I don't really have a plan as to how I want to shape it. So I usually like to go into these and just kind of file it down and shape it down until it fits in my hand the way I want it to, and the way that it feels natural for the blade itself. So what I'm going to first do is hit that outer edge. That's usually where I start, is on the backbone of the blade, and work that down. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and put the blade itself into that little cardboard protector there, just to protect my hands, just in case. And here we go. Well, first, okay, before I start profiling down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take down the back here, remove any epoxy that spilled out. That was what I was talking about last video. If we had any extra epoxy or anything else like that, we could take it down in this stage. And this is the part where I said I was going to take it down to metal all the way. So we want the metal to be even with the wood. We don't want any we don't want any wood sticking out. We don't want any metal sticking out. We want everything to be nice and flush. And that's what I'm working on here. Getting those corners to look nice. Making sure I don't take off too much, but rounding them to my satisfaction, I suppose. Then we're going to come in and hit the underneath side. Now, up against that guard, it's going to be pretty hard to get to. As you can see, there's a lot of epoxy jammed in there. So I'm going to mess with the tracking on my belt here. I'm going to put it all the way over to the right, as far as it can go, just about to the edge. I'm going to start grinding as close to that guard as possible. And I realized that you can't see this, and I changed the camera view here in just a second. I was doing that work, and I was like, oh, crap, no one can see what I'm doing. So we'll do this. There you go. So as you can see, I'm going all the way to the edge. I know I'm still a little out of frame here, but there you go. It's a nice and quick hit. As you can see, I'm right up against that guard now. I'm going to focus. You can see a little bit of sawdust pooling down in there, which does mean that it's not quite flush yet. Now I am going to combat that with a file here in just a moment. So we're going to come back down, and we're just going to worry about shaping. I figured I would file and shape at the same time. So here's where we started on that. So what I'm doing is I'm taking down a little bit of thickness here on the sides. This is just going to get it closer to where I want it to be when I start profiling down the grip. And these scales weren't quite cut evenly, so the side that I'm working on right now is just slightly thicker. So we do want to take that down, and I think that's what I was showing to you at that moment. Is that we want to take this side down so it matches in thickness to the other side. Alright, now we're taking down that outer corner. And you're going to start seeing the profile of the grip itself start to take shape here. Also, in this video especially, I apologize if anyone is weirded out by double jointedness. I've had it my entire life, as most do. Hell, all, if I imagine most people who are double jointed have had it their entire life. I doubt that's a late onset thing, either way. But I do have the hitchhiker's thumb, and it's a great way to grip things, so you'll see that quite a bit in this video. More so when I'm sanding, which is sped up, so it may not be as prevalent, but I know that some people are a little grossed out by that, and I apologize, if you are. Alright, so as you can see, we're getting a little bit of a ridge on that back corner there, so I'm going to start hitting that next. But I want to get the general contour the way I want it at first. That'll taper down to the bottom. You can also get a really good idea of what the wood grain looks like. I'm taking down a lot of material on the back right now. And rounding out that corner and getting rid of that ridge that I just put in there. Making it kind of flow into the back of the knife, which you can start to see now. Beautiful. I'm now removing the ridge on the underneath side of the grip on that side. And those quick passes that I'm doing there is more of a feathering technique to remove any ridges that I may have put in when I was taking away material. Just trying to smooth everything out, make it all a little bit nicer. There you go. It's about to the thickness that I want it. There is a ridge up by the guard, but that will be taken away later on with filing. And with sanding. Oh, the sanding. Just to give you a quick idea straight away, I had to edit over 2 hours of sanding footage, and I ended up deleting most of it. Don't even know why I left the camera rolling. But, you know, that's what this is. Especially woodwork. Lots of sanding. So I'm trying to take the profile down a little bit here. As you can see, the area of the knife towards the back end of it, the butt of the knife, it was a little bit higher than the front. So just during that little bit there, I was trying to even that out a little bit. Until I was happy with the contour. That looks pretty good. So you can start to see it. It's starting to take shape. Ooh, contours. There you go. Then I believe I'm going to start on the other side now. Nope. So what I'm doing here is evening this up with the guard itself. I want it to be a smooth transition from the brass of the guard to the knife. So I am going to be taking that down. I know I cut those at a 45 earlier. I did that just in case I wanted that to flare out just a touch there. And in the long run, I decided to go ahead and not do that. So this knife looks a lot better when it goes straight from the guard into the grip. So I will be passing back over that with the deburring wheel, that brass guard. So that we can make it shiny and make it look nice, because I do tag it with sandpaper a little bit here. And we're starting on the other side. So my goal now is to mirror our first side on our second side. And the biggest way to do that at the moment is to take away material. We got to thin it out quite a bit before we can start getting those contours to match. Got more material on the back end, so I'm going to work on the back end quite a bit. Also going to start rounding those corners. There we go. Starting to even up there. I'm trying to match the curve. And once again, taking out more material along the flats. And we're going to start curving that back end now. There you go. Those are starting to match up. Looks good. And now for the underneath side. Once again, evening up that side with the guard itself. And now, since they mostly match, what we're doing is we're going back and just do little tweaks to ensure that both sides match. As you can see now, I'm moving the tracking to the complete opposite side and repeating the same step that I did earlier, just from a different angle. You can see the size of it in my hand as well. The grip is only about 4 inches long. It's not very long. I have very large hands, so keep that in mind. I only get a grip on it with my first 3 fingers and my thumb. My pinky kind of wraps around the back end of it, which does add a bit of stability, which I do enjoy. It's just a nice, small utility knife, if you will. It'd be great if you're backpacking or something along those lines and just need a small survival knife with you. Nothing huge, you're not trying to kill anything with it, but it's great for sharpening sticks or cutting things up for kindling and that sort of thing. I resorted my camera here, and then what I did is I put on the 120 grit sandpaper again. So we're back down to the 120 grit belts. Mess with my track and get this centered again. And what we're doing now is we're smoothing out. We're smoothing out and taking out a lot of those deep gouges that were placed in by the 50 grit sandpaper. And any little ridges that you see, you can kind of see a few of them along the bottom and stuff like that. This is going to be used to smooth all of those out. Now, being a belt grinder, it is still going to remove material, so you kind of want to guess on the fat side of things while you're prepping for this stage. Make sure you have a little bit of material still to take off. That way you don't take too much off and you end up with a guard that's way too small. But as you can see, it's mostly just light passes, nothing crazy. We're not really trying to take away material or anything else like that. I was just checking to see how flush it was. And once again, those faster movements are to remove any ridges. That's a feathering. Okay, rounding over the bottom now. Looking very, very nice. Right now I'm testing to see if I can feel any burrs or anything sticking up, any rough patches that have not been fully sanded yet. And I do that for both sides. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to address the extra material underneath the guard on the underneath side of the knife. That's going to be taken out. I use a couple different things here. I use a jewelry saw, purely because the blade is so small and it's easily maneuverable. You can easily use it on wood. It doesn't hurt anything. And those blades are replaceable, so if anything happened, I would replace it. But I utilize that, and then I go back with a file and take out anything else. But I knew with that small hacksaw head, we'd be able to get in there and maneuver easily, and I'd be able to run lengthwise with the metal so that it wouldn't cut into the knife at all. So right now I'm doing some relief cuts. Then I come in around the back end here until we meet that, and that'll just pop straight out. There it goes. Doing another relief cut. And once again, following the curvature of the tang. There you go. Another little piece came out. That should make it relatively smooth. There's a little bit right up at the top. I'm going to go ahead and remove that, and then we're going to start in on the filing. Head. Alright, so now we're going to start filing and smoothing all this out. The bench vise moved around a bit, so I clamped it down and then moved the camera so you could see just a little bit better as to what I was doing. I'm using a curved file right now. I don't know the specific number off the top of my head. But one side has a more aggressive dome, and the other side is mostly flat with a slight curve to it. And this works really well for getting in these kind of angled surfaces here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to file this until all of that epoxy that's down in there that you can kind of see, it's kind of a light white color. I'm going to file this until all that is gone, and we only can see the steel. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and unclamp that. As you can see, it's nice and smooth underneath. And begins the arduous process of sanding. Filing. I lied. Filing. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm smoothing over those edges on the underneath side where I couldn't quite get with the grinding belt. I'll slide my camera closer. I think this is a quick move, which is why I left it in. There you go. Beautiful. So you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. You can see I'm coming across there, smoothing that out. And I'm going to feather that last ridge into that grind there. Nice. And we're going to repeat that for the other side. There. You can see how smooth that's getting now. That wood grain is gorgeous. It turned out very well. I'm actually very, very happy about that. Once again, quick camera adjustment. Sorry for leaving those in. There. So you can see a good view here. You'll see me grabbing the knife as if I were using it several times. I do that so that I can feel how it feels in my hand, feel any bits that don't feel correct when I'm holding it. Because now is the time to change those on the belt grinder before we get into the sanding and finishing stage. But we are getting ever closer. All right, so we're going to start with 320 grit sandpaper. So I went down to 120 on the belt, and now I'm doing hand sanding at 320. So I cut a small piece, fold that in half so I can hang on to it a little bit easier. And we begin sanding. I'm going to go ahead and put this little cardboard thing back on. I like it because it protects the blade. It also prevents me from nicking it with the sandpaper as well. So now we get into super turbo mode Farrington, and I only wish that it went this fast when you were sanding it itself. So now I begin sanding. Now remember, there were 2 hours of sanding that I edited through, and even more that I didn't even record. So it takes some time. If you take the time to sand everything up front, it saves you so much work on the back end. It really makes the knife look fantastic later. A good rule of thumb while you're sanding is you will see a lot of the sawdust collect in deeper scratches. And basically the rule of thumb there is to sand in that location until you can no longer see that sawdust. And if you get in high enough grit here, you will actually, the wood will actually get shiny before you even place any finishing or sealer on there, which you will see a little bit later. Oh, crazy camera, refocus. Ah. Da-da-da. All right, sanding, sanding, even more sanding. Anytime you see me run my fingers across the wood there, that's also to find any unevenness or any pronounced changes in the surface. I want it to feel kind of smooth like glass all the way across. So I'm feeling for any burrs, any places that are sticking, that sort of thing. My sandpaper got loaded up, so I'm going to go ahead and use another piece. Now the sandpaper I'm using is wet and dry sandpaper. You could wet sand this, I guess, if you wanted to. But I don't really see the benefit on wood. On steel, I can still kind of see the benefit, but I still don't. This brand that I got, I like because it holds together really well. Sanding and checking, and sanding and checking, and sanding and checking. Alright, so I did notice that one piece of wood was a little bit higher than the guard. I edited it out, but I did tag that on the belt grinder just real quick to even that out. Came back and sanded it flush. Alrighty. Once again, sanding, sanding, sanding. Now, I did notice that the steel that was running through the guard, through the grip there, was not finished too well, so I did take it to the deburring wheel here. I sped this up as well. I also made the executive decision to kind of contour that guard in the front. I wanted to round it on the bottom. I felt that it would look a little bit nicer, and in the long run, I think it does. So you can see those dancing wire cutters in the back. Hooray. Properly put back in their place. Not. But I'm hitting all the metal in between in what is known as the tang, the part that runs in the grip. So I'm hitting all that, smoothing all that metal out. Coming up underneath there. This is me hitting the guard in the front. This is where you'll see me start to round that, spending a lot of time on it. I can actually round it on the deburring wheel. I don't necessarily need to take it to the belt grinder, as this is pretty abrasive, and also with how soft brass is, I knew it would make some pretty quick work. So you can see the underneath side a little bit rounded there. Looks pretty good in my opinion. And then I tossed some gloves on. It was starting to heat up a little bit. And then I came back and hit the rest of that metal. I didn't anticipate being on the deburring wheel as long as I was, so the gloves were a necessary decision. Alright, and then back to the land of sped up sanding once again. So now we're going to switch down to our 400 grit sandpaper. As you can see there, I showed the camera real quick. And this is where we really start to put that finish on there. So this is going to make that wood super, super glass smooth. And have it ready for finishing. Have it ready to be oiled. Now with wood, especially with Pt.2, it is a fairly porous wood. So you don't necessarily need to take this down in grit any finer. You can, however, with the stone wash of the blade, I didn't want a glossy, super shiny, glass smooth wood handle. I wanted it to look a little more natural, so I did decide to only go down to 400 grit sandpaper here and then oil it then. So it's going to have a very natural appearance. It's only sealed with oil. It doesn't have any clear coat or anything else on there. In my opinion, I'm not a big fan of clear coats on your knives because that will only flake later on. So I am going to be buffing the wood and so forth off camera just to get it a little extra finish polish before I put it up for sale on the website. But just wanted to show you how I got there. So we're taking that 400 grit sandpaper all around, checking for any scratches there may be, and removing those. This takes the longest. So you can still see those ridges down in that steel there, and a couple along the back. But it looks really nice. You can actually get it, it even looks a little shiny right now, which is pretty cool. So I'm holding it in my hand, testing the grip, all that good stuff, making sure I like how it feels in my hand. And then sanding more. Lots and lots of sanding. This, with the 400 grit, with how minute you get on the details and how fine you want that sand, this takes even longer than the 320 grit sandpaper. I edited out about 40 minutes of the 320, and I edited out about an hour and a half of the 400 grit sandpaper sanding footage. It's just a lot of the same thing, going over and back over and back over and back over the same areas until you have it perfectly smooth the way you want it. So this is the preliminary pass here, and just know I spent a lot more time on it. But then we're going to go into oiling. So what I use here to oil the wood is I just use boiled linseed oil. That's pretty standard. And you will see how the grain comes alive when you put this stuff on. So there's a little bit on a rag there. And depending on how thirsty or how porous your wood is, you will need to put on a couple of coats of this stuff because it will soak in. It really does make the wood look incredible. It's not going to look that glossy or that wet in person. That's just because it had a fresh coat of oil on there. And yeah, but it makes it really, really come alive. It makes that wood grain look really nice. And it'll also waterproof it. I put about, I ended up putting close to 8 coats on this. Basically until it stopped absorbing, and then I buffed it. But this will waterproof the outside temporarily. And if anything happens, if you drop it, or if it gets a scuff on there or anything else like that, you can sand that out just real quick and then slap some more boiled linseed oil on there. And it will continue to protect your knife. And if you take care of the grip, the knife will last you for ages. So I'm a big fan of the boiled linseed. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoot the camera real quick. And then I'm going to grab that bench vise that I had before. We're going to place that up. Oh, Jesus. We're going to place that up on the bench there. Tilt this back so you can see a little bit better. And then we're going to place this really gently in the vise. I don't want to mar the grip. I know it has a cardboard thing on there, but it'll still mar the grip, mar the blade. So I'm going to set that up like that. And then I got fancy with a couple of different camera lenses. I got super close so you can see that wood grain a lot better. So you can see the depth of the grain that's brought out by linseed oil. I'm a big fan of it. So we'll arrange that like that. Now, I apologize, the camera was shaking around a little bit. I was messing with focus and stuff like that on this one. Wanted to make sure you could see it super nice. Trying to center the damn thing. And then we zoom in, and the reason I left all this crap in here is because I do get the focus on here, and then I stop touching it so you can really see that wood grain. It is really, really beautiful. I'm a big fan of Pt.2. It looks really super nice. Alright, and here's another view of that grain. Once again, fiddling with it a lot. Another one here. A little bit nicer on this one. I stop messing with focus and then leave it alone. Hey, look how nice that is. Then what I wanted to show you guys is that's had a chance to soak in a little bit. So there's still a little bit on the surface. There will be. So I come in, you want to wipe that down, wipe that off. Buff the surface by hand with just a normal cotton towel. This is a cotton shop rag, but it's a clean one. You know, it's a new one. So we'll wipe off any excess. Looking very nice. So it is going to be a matte finish, much like the guard, with the finished product. As you can see, the brass has a nice light matte, more of a satin finish on it. I guess you could say the same thing for the grip. Thought that would look nice with the stone-washed blade. So then we toss it back in the clamp. Nice light hold. I'll grab my boiled linseed oil once again and toss on a second coat. There you go. Just want to wipe it on nice and gentle. And then this one I let soak in overnight, and then the following day I put a coat on before I went to work, coat on when I got home, and then a coat on actually just a few minutes ago. To let all that soak in and let it get super beautiful. Remove that fuzz. There you go. Now look how pretty it is. So what I wanted to do in wrapping this up is that's basically the knife. You'll see it in the store. I'll take some glamour shots of it, that sort of thing. I did take a couple pictures that I placed in here at the end so you can see the wood grain up close once again. But then I also put in a bunch of pictures of the weather that was happening around. As you can hear, the cicadas are out. It's stopped raining. And the clouds are absolutely gorgeous. So if you want some nature porn, some really awesome cloud photography, there was some phenomena that I've just not seen ever that I really liked. So I took a couple pictures of those, and those are pretty cool as well. And if you're following the channel, check me out on Discord, and I will post those there as well. Yay! Thumbs up. So as you can see here. That's the grip from the side. You can see that wood grain in there pretty nicely. And there's the other side as well. The first side I think is slightly prettier, but they're still very nice. So that's out front. You can't see a whole lot, but then I'll start messing with exposure and aperture. And this stuff is really nice. It was very cool. And then we had these rays poking through the clouds, which I was just absolutely enamored by. They were so cool. So I started really messing with f-stop and so forth to get those to pop out a little bit better. So yeah, just some nature porn if you're interested. This is one of my favorites, and then I go one darker and it looks even better. Oh, I know it's too dark for much of anything, but you can really see the definition in the contrails and in the clouds and stuff. It's just very pretty. Then there was some bigger, poofier cloud formations that I took a picture of here in just a little bit that I thought was just beautiful. There's one of the rays up close. Yay, pretty. And there's the whole thing once again as it moved over just a touch. Just very interesting. And then this little window between the trees of these tall cumulonimbus clouds, it was just very cool. I had a lot of fun taking pictures of those. That one in the middle looks a little bit like a teddy bear, doesn't it? Or a pig. Well, it's gone. It moved. But I took a few of these and I just thought they were really gorgeous. So despite all the flooding in the basement and everything else like that, the sky at least was very, very gorgeous at the end of the night. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Thanks for letting me show you some weather photography as well. Ooh, pretty. And I'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.